started, I appreciate the opportunity to talk today about work that we're doing in Dallas to prepare for the World Cup next year. And so there's several items that I'll touch on that deal with travel demand strategies. So first off, one thing that we're looking at is what matches are held on what days. And so for our region, we have 9 matches. We have 7 that are going to be held during the weekday, which those are the ones we're really have some focus on when it comes to travel demand management and looking at that background traffic, because we don't know what time of the day those will be held, but they could coincide with our peak hour travel. And so those are ones that we have a lot of focus and are interested in learning more about the time of day that those matches will be held. And then we have 2 weekend matches, one on a Sunday and one on a Saturday. We also have interest in those in the background traffic as well, because that varies on the weekend compared to the weekday. But that's really the focus that we have on the weekday versus weekend matches that are coming up. The next slide, you'll see that our region has multiple venues across it. And so this does help us spread the demand across multiple areas. But in the middle of this slide, you see Dallas Stadium. That is where the matches will be held in the city of Arlington. And then the other 2 primary focus areas that we have are, one, our Fan Fest is going to be at Fair Park. That's in Dallas. And then we also are hosting the International Broadcasting Center, which will be held at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in downtown Dallas. And so I'm going to talk about each of these venues and about transportation modes and options to get folks to these venues next year when they come into town. The next slide, I just want to kind of highlight what we're starting to look at when it comes to travel demand management type focus areas. So we have multiple clients that we have to serve within the region. Fans attending the event. So for those folks, we're really looking at routing, depending if they're driving. We want to provide specific routes based on their origin and their destination to what lot they might be arriving at, as well as modal options and making them aware of what options they have to get to and from the stadium. In addition to that, we got to think about the businesses. The businesses are happy that folks are coming here, but then it could cause some problems with their hours of operation and things like that, getting folks in and out, deliveries to their locations. And so making sure we engage them in our plans and understanding when events will be taking place and the peak of the congestion within our region. The third group is our residents. So these are folks that travel in our region every day. And so we need to make sure that we coordinate and communicate with them about the event, the time of day of the event, see if there's ways we can reduce the background traffic around the stadium while still encouraging our residents to go to like Fan Fest, because we want attendance at that. And so there's kind of a balance of these messages that have to be sent out so that we don't I guess, deter them from going to Fan Fest when an event is going on or a match is going on at the stadium. And then we'd also be looking for possible adjusting work hours or remote work for folks that do have the ability to do that during the match days, specifically those 7 weekday events that we have. The media obviously plays a large role in getting this message out to our residents and our businesses. And then in addition to them, we have our operations agencies. And so these agencies would be dealing with retiming of signals, restricting construction during the matches. Again, we want to have everything open that we can. We want as much capacity on our transportation network as we can, and then managing traffic congestion due to crashes or incidents or other types of things. So these are really our focus areas of the different clients or users of our system that we have to think about as we begin to put these plans in place, and then what role they play in helping us with the demand on the system. The next slide, I just cover here. So our initial draft that was due to FIFA in March, we had to come up with a modal split. You'll see this is very different than what Jonathan had presented in England. We in Dallas area, we have quite a bit of parking around the stadium itself, but we do expect a larger than normal mode shift to transit because of the type of the event. World Cup usually has a higher transit mode than our normal events that are held at the stadium. So we have increased this modal split for transit. When you combine bus and rail, we're looking at about a 34% split here for those transit modes. We're still estimating a large split for automobiles, and then a little bit for rideshare and walking. There are some hotels close enough to walk to the stadium, and then the rideshare, we're continuing to work to understand what we think that split might be. And I'll talk through some of that as we go through the presentation itself. This first focus I want to make is at Dallas Stadium. So the expected attendance at these events is greater than 70,000. We do have, like I mentioned, a large amount of parking around the stadium. Even with FIFA reserving over 8,000 of the spots, we have over 30,000 spots around the stadium for folks to use. And I will note, we don't have a fixed transit service that's provided to these events. And so it's really important to us to make sure that we utilize our commuter rail, which it runs north of the stadium. And then I'll talk about this as more when we get to the transit component. We have a backup system for the bus bridge. I will mention, if you look at the map, I know it's kind of small, but there is, similar to what Jonathan had mentioned about security around the stadium, we have kind of 3 levels of monitoring how many folks can get close to the stadium. One is for our transit service. Right now, we're proposing that they check their tickets as they get on the transit service to the stadium, the shuttle that comes to the stadium. I'm sorry, can you go back one more slide there? And then the other thing is, the other security parameter is around the stadium. You see that red line. So there is an outer security perimeter, and then there's the security check when you get to the stadium entrance points. In addition to that, around the stadium, we have reversible lane control signals that'll be activated, getting folks in and out of there as part of this, and it'll be continued to monitor where traffic congestion occurs and how to adjust signals and other things to help with the demand management. In addition to that, I mentioned we'll be working as folks purchase parking passes and permits on looking at their origin and what lot they're purchasing that parking permit in. And so we can direct them on different routes. Again, so we don't overload one route to the stadium. We want to make sure we disperse that load across all the roadways to get to and from the lots where they may have their spot reserved. On the transit side, which is the next slide, again, we focus on redundancy within our system. So the transit system itself, again, we're trying to carry 34% of the modal split on transit. So the primary component is this commuter rail line that runs north of the stadium. It's the double kind of dark blue line that's provided up there. The stadium is south of a transit station, the Centerport transit station. And there's a few things with this particular effort that we plan. So commuter rail line to the Centerport station, and then we'll have shuttle buses that take them from the stadium down to down to the Centerport station, down to the Dallas Stadium, getting my words mixed up. And so there will be a dedicated lot close to the stadium, in which it's a transit dedicated lot that we plan to use. We'll be looking at walking paths from the lot to the stadium itself for the matches. And we've also making lots of improvements to sidewalks, to signage, to wayfinding items to get folks from the lot to the stadium, and making sure we have the capacity for pedestrians to travel along those routes. On the next slide, in addition to the commuter rail, we have a backup bus bridge. Again, we want redundancy within our system. So on this map, you can see the red line is the commuter rail with the shuttle in green that goes down to the stadium. And then we're going to have a bus bridge from both Dallas and Fort Worth that bring folks to the stadium and the same lot. From the Dallas side of the region, we do have a managed lane, a dedicated barrier separated lane that's reversible that these buses can utilize from downtown Dallas to Arlington Stadium. And so that would allow for the free flow of those buses into the stadium itself. In addition to that, this bus bridge backup will be in the same lot that the shuttle bus is for the commuter rail. And this will hopefully help us balance that demand. So we load up the buses, get the lot cleared more quickly as the pedestrians come up after the match. We can try to get them out of the entertainment district and back to their destination quickly. In addition to that, we're locating our transit lot very close to the rideshare lot to try to avoid price gouging after the event. So if somebody took rideshare to the event and it was $50 and after the event they want to charge $200 just because of the demand, we can send them back via transit to a downtown area or to that station just north of the stadium, and they can maybe get a ride share that costs a lot less from those locations than from the stadium itself. So we've always tried to focus on having the ride share lot close to our transit lot to help with this situation if it does occur. In addition to the stadium, there's the Fair Park, the Fan Fest there. That is another major focus. This is estimated to have over 40,000 attendants a day. Now, the stadium or the Fair Park is served by our Dallas Area Rapid Transit light rail line. So folks will have access to transit along this facility. In what DART, our Dallas Area Rapid Transit, is done for other events at Fair Park, like our state fair. They also have a backup bridge for buses that help transport folks in and out of this area. And we're looking to see what we might need for Fair Park as a bus backup to the light rail as well, if that's needed. But again, redundancy is what we have focused on for our plans that we have. And the last area that I want to cover is the International Broadcasting Center. This is at the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in downtown Dallas. There is a major construction project that's going on the freeway just south of this location. So we're working with the Department of Transportation to put that construction project on hold, get to a point where it can be put on hold with the lanes open during the World Cup activities. It's about a 6-week period next summer that we'll need that to be on hold, and it's part of the construction contract itself to help alleviate congestion in the area. And then this particular location is also served by the Dallas Area Rapid Transit light rail system to get folks to and from the International Broadcasting Center. So these locations, we do have light rail that serves them, and we'll continue to monitor if additional bus backups are needed for these locations based on the activities that are occurring there. And just kind of wrap things up, you know, a few things we have upcoming that we've learned about that folks might be interested in is we've been talking with our host committee about training for transportation related folks. And some of this involves security related training based on what teams are coming and understanding the cultures of those teams, because I've heard a lot about mixing teams and some don't get along with each other. So we need to understand, how do we react to that as transportation agencies working out in the field and helping direct folks to utilize these different modes of transportation. Accessibility is another training that we're getting everybody trained on to make sure we provide appropriate accommodations for folks that need it. And then human trafficking is something that's not necessarily transportation related, but it's something working in the field you need to be aware of so you know what to do if you encounter something to that sort. In addition to those trainings, we're doing a public transportation tabletop exercise on our bus bridge and our commuter rail service this summer to identify gaps so that we can resolve those items prior to World Cup coming up next year. And then in the fall and winter, we plan to do several dry runs at events held at the stadium to help test different scenarios and understand where we might need to make additional adjustments to our plan prior to the World Cup next year to help with the demand on our system. And with that, I'll turn it back to Nick.
Okay, thanks, Natalie. Great information. So you mentioned a little bit about the rideshare or the TNC. Has your group engaged with the Ubers and Lyfts to have any conversations with them? And are there any policies that you have in place, and how's that all going to work out, do you think?
Yeah, so FIFA hosted the one workshop with rideshare companies where they presented to folks that were in attendance at that webinar. And then FIFA has also given us contacts for those agencies. So we are beginning to reach out to them and understand, like, how can we get them a lot and hopefully they use the lot, because I think we've all experienced where sometimes even if you have a dedicated lot, they still just stop on the side of the road and drop people off, which causes a lot of congestion. And so we're reaching out to them to see what amenities might be good in a lot, what will encourage them to use a lot and not take the opportunity to drop off at the side of the road. And so we're definitely engaging them in those discussions so we can try to set it up in a manner that keeps them from doing that. There are restrictions in Arlington about dropping off on the side of the road. They even have signs up that talk about the city policy, and they've tried to enforce it, but it happens so much that I don't think there's been enough officers out there to do the enforcement during the event. So it's definitely something we want to try to get a handle around using technology rather than trying to get law enforcement out there to enforce this everywhere when we, probably need them to be doing other things, like directing traffic.
Yeah, and certainly there's probably safety implications on, dropping people off on the side of the road as well.
Mhm.
So can you share anything more about equity-focused mode shift strategies as it relates to what's happening with the stadium? You talked a little bit about the mode splits, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we originally were thinking about providing free transit to folks that were attending the event. And after conversations with our transit agencies and the host committee, we might be adjusting that slightly. But we do want to make sure that we can provide equitable transit service for those folks. Because parking could be very expensive. I think transit's probably an opportunity for us to capture that group that might need a more reliable and less expensive way to travel within our region. But we have been tossing around the idea of free transit or very low cost transit for those types of folks.
Great. And when it comes down to the parking, what's the communication going to be like on that in terms of, getting a parking pass? Can you book in advance? What happens if you don't? I'm sure you guys are probably working through all of that, but any
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it we're still working through. We're hoping that when when folks purchase the pass, that we understand where their origin is, and then we know what lot obviously they're purchasing the pass in, and we give them directions on getting to that lot from either, and it can be a generic origin, like if they know they're staying in downtown Dallas, we don't have to know the specific hotel, but we can give them directions of take I-30 and you exit at Collins Street and come down and get in your lot versus taking, another way where you take 360 South and Division over to get to the lot. So there's roadway options for people to get to these lots, and we want to make sure that they're not all taking the same lot. We also will try to work with like Waze and Google, because if folks decide to use navigational services to get to and from these lots, we might be able to, we have been working with Waze recently. And so we're hoping we can utilize some of those navigational services to help us not have everybody take the same route to and from the stadium, because that would just cause gridlock if everybody just, decided to do that. And so we're having good success talking with them.
Okay, and I know that you and your committee groups there have put in an enormous amount of work on this. So what types of thoughts do you have on what will happen after FIFA? Do you think that some of the efforts that you put forth are going to be used long term, and for other like major events and that type of thing? Because I know you probably already have events there, but anything that you think would carry over?
Yeah, I mean, we've used the routing system in the past, so that really came like routing from origin to the specific lot. That came about when we did the Super Bowl back in 2011. So we've just continued to refine that effort. We did offer transit during some of these mega events, so we have offered that for other events. The Super Bowl, we offered it. Some NCAA playoff, Final Four playoff games. We did it even for WrestleMania. Obviously, different events have different ride share for transit. We know World Cup is a great opportunity to capture a larger mode share for transit. And so that's why we really put a focus on having this redundancy within the transit itself. But transit is usually a component, especially if we know the clients that are going to the event are strong transit users. And that's one thing that's very unique about World Cup that we're excited to have, is a large number of transit users, and our transit agencies are very excited about that as well, and making sure we can accommodate them.